Hi, welcome everyone to our session this evening where we are here to support those of you that are interested in becoming a SCRA Fellow. So we have two of our committee members here to provide you with any of the nuts and bolts questions and supports that you may have about the application. If you have not had an opportunity to, please visit our website under membership awards and fellows, and we have a lot of resources for those of you that might be interested in SCRA fellow status as well as APA fellow status as well. And so I'm going to just pass it on over to our chair, Bill, and we also have a committee member here with us as well as Meg. Now, if you all have any questions during the session, feel free to put them in the chat. You can post them to everyone, or you can just send them to me privately, whatever makes your heart smile. All right, I look forward to our session this evening. Bill, take it away.
Thanks, Amber. So first of all, to Amber and her predecessors, and to the SCRA past presidents who inherited the role of chairing the fellow committee. You guys have done a really phenomenal job. The website has everything that you would ever want to know about this and anything else, including solving global warming and the international monetary crisis. It's a great job, but there's a lot there. So the good news is we have two goals for this session. One is to answer as clearly and as easily as we can questions that you have. And the second is to offer, based on a few decades of doing this, 3 suggestions for how to be a successful applicant. A successful fellow, well, that's peer review and a whole bunch of other things, but we think we can offer you a way of making the process easier. So we want to be guided by questions that you have. So Marissa, we know you can use the chat, and Dr. Hall, you can, would you start it off? So let's get questions, concerns, issues, both of you have, and then we'll go directly there.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And so I got the reminder from Dr. Kelly earlier, which was really good because I didn't have this information right before me. And so that was a great reminder. So I'm just interested in knowing just overall what are the requirements and when it's the due date. Thank you.
Sure, well, we can do that. I have 3 PowerPoint slides, total sum about 90 seconds. And the first two will and the first 2 will answer directly the question that you have. And then we can kind of, just as we go, generate it from there. Marissa, did you put something in that? Let me just look in the chat and see what we can do to best serve you here. Let's get the chat open if we can. Show chat previews.
I've got it. Marissa hasn't. Oh, there she is.
Oh, okay. Chat 1. Let's see what we got. Okay. Well, look, let's try. So Dr. Hall or Tanya, what do you prefer?
Tanya is fine.
Okay, we will kind of do that for us. So Amber, can you let me share my screen, or I already have permission to do that? Let's see.
You should be able to do that.
I do.
All
And
right.
let me go into presenter mode here. You guys can see my screen okay?
And
Yes.
all of your apps too.
Yes.
Not anymore. You can see the picture of my granddaughter, the new puppy. We'll go over all that later. So thanks for doing that. Let me do a headline news overview of the process in 2 slides. And the easy thing is the due date, and that's December the 15th. And we'll take you kind of through that. So the yellow highlights. The definition is ambiguous, and for all of these decades, significantly advanced the field of community research and action. Okay, how is it defined? Contributions to, and you can, I don't need to read the screen for it, but the next one. It's a very broad tapestry of contributions that you can make, from policy to program to advocacy to theory, research, administration. So it's really a very, very wide open opportunity to look at where you can make the contributions. SCRA uses the same definition. I'm at the third bullet point of unusual and outstanding contribution. So I'm an APA fellow and a fellow of 3 of the APA divisions. And people have often described me as unusual. Trying to characterize what I've actually contributed, that was a little bit more of a challenge, unusual and outstanding contribution. So the third point here is sustained productivity over a period of a minimum of 5 years. So that's kind of the horizon in which we look at it. And then distinctive contributions too, that are recognized by others as excellent, and then impact beyond the immediate setting which the fellow works. And the last point on this slide really talks about embracing diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, and really trying to reach out to make sure that our applicants have more than equal opportunity to apply of this as well. So I want to add one thing here, and that's structure, process, outcome, impact, 4 domains of program evaluation, as you probably know. When you look at impact today and the opportunities that we have to have that impact beyond the immediacy, the social media have just reinvented how our members have contributed. Not just a journal article, or you'll see the application says put an R next to all of your APA referee journals. Well, the number of people who actually read those is pretty small. But our members have had impact through open source contributions on the web, through access to their work. 2 examples from SCRA as a whole, you may know, the Community Toolbox, Kansas State, and the Global Journal of Community Psychology Practice. Both of those worldwide impact, and the access is open source and it's free. And just like Wikipedia, it keeps getting revised and reviewed. So really encourage those applicants to look at their impact far beyond what the traditional ways have been.
Can I say
Yeah.
a little bit here too? Just
Absolutely, please, Meg.
for questions. So Tonya and Marissa, to the extent that you can you tell us what kind of settings that you're working in now? Because that shapes how you document impact.
I'm currently working in academia. I teach in the Department of Psychology and Counseling at Chicago State University. And I also, I was just going to make a mention of the Community Toolbox that's University of Kansas with Dr. Steve Fawcett.
Oh, sure.
Yes. But so I am currently also doing research, and I think that will be my strong point in community psychology. And so that's my primary focus.
What's the research area, Tanya?
Well, the research area is we're looking at re-entry and community establishing community resources. So this is a community participatory action research program that's being developed. And right now we're establishing a framework that will assist us in building partnerships, collaborations with community partners who work with individuals who are returning from incarceration to our communities.
So in that kind of situation, Tonya, when you think about impact, and sounds like you can probably do this, that it's fellow is more than having a long CV. It's not the number of things that you've published, but it is, has your work really influenced the work of other people? So if you've developed a framework, what you would want to document is that other people have picked up and used your framework, or that they've seen your framework and elaborated on it in some way. So that's what it means by impact beyond your immediate setting. So is there any uptake or resonance that you can document in terms of having an impact on the work of other people?
And
And
just
it
to
doesn't have
follow,
to just be in terms of their publications. It can be absolutely in terms of their application. So it doesn't have to be other academic settings. It could be applied settings, but it's really documenting that impact is really about has there been some uptake in ways that go beyond your local? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Thank you for the clarification.
Mhm.
add one quick thing to Meg's good point here, which is your work yet shareable? Is it work in progress? Have you, could I get access to your work in any social media on the university website yet?
So you asking that of Tonya?
Oh, Tonya, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that a question? Did you?
Yeah,
have a
so
question?
It was a good
oftentimes, is it a
set of
work in-
guidance too.
is it work in progress, or are results available, or is it, part of a website or a virtual place where people could go to learn about your work and also
Well,
comment on it?
yes, so it is a part of a website currently in which individuals who are returning to communities can find this framework and find this resource. So that is a recent publication on the web. And so I could report on the status of
Sure.
those
Yeah.
resources.
And one of the things that I comment on in the site is Google Analytics.
Mm.
It is just amazing to look at. Well, you would think, well, how many people have seen the site? Not everybody looks, but you'd be amazed to find out not only who is looking, but how that gets passed on. So that's a good part of something going viral.
Mhm.
Marissa, are you able to?
Marissa did share, Bill. Let me
Oh, please.
respond to Marissa. You say you're an associate professor and an assistant professor, so I'm a little confused by that. So you're an associate professor of criminal justice law and an assistant professor of psychology? I don't know if you can respond by chat.
Well, let's
let me-
assume she's
Let
one
me,
of
let me,
those.
let me respond a little bit generically. So there is this 5 years, where is it on this definition? A minimum of 5 years. It's
Yeah.
unusual that an assistant professor would qualify for fellow status. So, but it sounds like, Marissa, that you're also an associate professor, so that would make a difference. But it is an indicator of people who are really in a senior leadership or leading, not just formal leadership roles, but are leading the work of community psychology. So does tend to be people who are a little further along in their career than most assistant professors. So Marissa, I'm really not sure. Oh, it says there's a new message. Maybe you clarified. Oh, so you're at 2 different institutions? My Lord, you must be going crazy. But congratulations. So if you're trying to demonstrate impact in psychology, you may want to consult with some of your colleagues. I know there are other people at Michigan State who do work on intimate partner violence, who might also be able to chat with you about it. But you really want to provide evidence that you're a real leader, and in that your work has influenced the work of other people. So intimate partner violence is a pretty well established area. And so what are the distinctive contributions that you've made to that area, and how has it influenced the work of other people are going to be a lot of what you need to provide a case for. And I remember when I was applying, it seems like ages ago, but I did talk about people who have, you look at, find out who cited your work, other people who cited my work. I also dug out people who had things I'd written on their syllabi for courses at other institutions. And I wasn't, it was before Google Analytics, but what you want to do is be able to cite specific examples of some people who picked up your work in one way or another. So for me, I did some in terms of the teaching realm and some in terms of the research and practice realm.
You know, that's such a great point, Meg. I hadn't thought of that. And it brings up kind of the global question of who are we? So I think I last Googled myself like 5 years ago. I was amazed, though, at what I found. Just what Meg was inferring. There are people who cited the work, there are people who looked at a program, and all of that kind of gets picked up. And that gives you an opportunity, and we'll talk about in the next slide, well, who may have been influenced by your work? Oftentimes people that we really don't know or really haven't thought of. One of our committee members, Maurice Elias, former SCRA past president, and you know his work in raising emotionally intelligent children, safe in civil schools. Mo just had an editorial in USA Today responding to the sudden awakening there is a children's mental health crisis. And Dr. Elias said, really? This has been going on for 4 decades. And he just took everybody through an evidence-based look at what the shortfalls have been. The bottom line, though, goes back to Meg. That single USA Today editorial probably reached in the nearly 100,000 people who have then seen it, read it, and passed it on. So it's
Don't get intimidated by that, however.
no.
You don't have to have quite
But
that.
at the same time, look around, you'd be surprised. So let me just do this one quickly, and this is kind of just the mechanics, and then we'll go back to kind of what would be most helpful. So at the bottom, completed nominations by the 15th. So one of the challenges, as always, and we were chatting about this afternoon, so your endorsers, give them enough time to do the recommendation and get it in. So just like all of us who do these recommendations, you're well-intentioned. A week is going to be, I think as Meg pointed out, end of December, if you're in an academic, is end of semester, it's exams, it's all kinds of other things. So give them kind of enough time. You fill out a standard 2-page fellow application. So the good news is it's the APA one. It's really simple. It's 2 pages and it's a PDF you can download. And APA recognizes for their status, the criteria of the divisions. So if you want to be an APA fellow as well, and you can read about that later on, they accept, I think, Meg, there are now 57 APA divisions. They'll accept the decision of the divisions, as opposed to, you know, if you were just applying for
Well,
APA status.
They don't necessarily, though, Bill. We might accept somebody as a fellow, and APA does their own review. So we automatically, if we accept somebody as a fellow and they want to be put forward for an APA fellow, you don't have to fill out a new form. But there have been situations where people are accepted as SCRA fellows and they're not automatically APA fellows.
I should
They're
have been
pretty
clear.
stringent.
Yeah, Meg is right, and I should have been clear. The criteria, though, that definition of unusual and outstanding, they'll recognize how the divisions do, and I'm sorry for being unclear about that, as opposed to having starting from scratch.
One of the areas, and this may not apply to either of you, Tonya or Marissa, is that SCRA will accept a lot more evidence of practical impact and significance. APA, in my experience, unless they've changed recently, they're much more traditional, and they want to know that you've had an impact on scholarship, research and scholarship. So, but don't let that deter you, because SCRA has a set of values that are different than APA's, in the sense of we acknowledge that there's lots of kinds of impact and lots of kinds of contributions, and they're not just academic. So we very, very purposefully and intentionally said we want to be able to have fellows that are fellows of our division, whether or not they want to go for APA fellowship, or whether or not APA accepts them as fellows.
Yeah, and again, you'll find more explication of that on the website, which is kind of in the call, and it does clarify kind of what those two are. I'm going to add a.
I have a comment about the endorsement letters, Bill, before you move to the
Sure.
topic. So one of the back to the criteria for fellow is this broader impact. And your endorsement letters are in some ways your best tool for documenting that. So the people who write your endorsement letters are very different people than the people who would write your letters of recommendation for anything else. I was on a fellows committee a little bit ago, and it was very clear that some of the letters we got were just dusted off and reformatted letters of recommendation. They are pretty almost, I hope I'm not overstating it, but worthless for fellow, because your letters of recommendation come from people who like you and know you, and sometimes they speak about all your personal strengths, and they're a different animal than these endorsement letters. So what you'd really like is to get an endorsement letter from somebody who's in your field, who is not at your institution, who doesn't know you very well, who could say, you know, this person's work has really influenced my work, even though I'm not a collaborator with them. So those are the most powerful letters. Or if they're editors of journals, that can say, you know, make sort of a test to the impact that you've had. Because this again speaks to sort of outside your local community. You really want to have people, I don't know whether arm's length is the right word, but who a little bit outside your personal realm, who can really, with a slightly more dispassionate eye, say, this person's had an impact.
So let me
So don't fall into the trap of letting someone who's written you a letter of recommendation just sort of dust it off and change who it's addressed to, because that's not that. I've seen that happen, and it doesn't serve you well.
I think that's really good advice. And part of what I tried to do here in this last guy here, moving the gallery around just a little bit. So exactly what Meg said. So what you want to do, and I'll start with second one, choose references who know you and your accomplishments well. Now you have 3 to 6. In some cases, if you can get 6, it's better than 3, because you have people, just as Meg was alluding to, who know different aspects of what you've done. Oftentimes people have influenced different domains. And so here's an opportunity to really say, well, you know of my work, or you may not, but let me tell you kind of what it is. And so you can kind of pick specific accomplishments and match those to who your endorsers are. The best advice I've seen is the thing in number 1. If you can do, so you're going to do a personal statement. If you can draft this thing, a case in brief, just in bullet points, make the case why you believe you meet the criteria for unusual and outstanding contributions to the field. And again, this is something that you can share with those who are going to endorse you. And unlike the personal letter and the CV, it really, really kind of gets down very granular to what this is. And again, have, you know, colleagues, others kind of look at it. You're talking about probably a half a page here. Here's the case that I make. And then from there, you have really an opportunity to unpack, well, who really could comment that, you know, best for you. And the last one is in number 3. I talked about this a little bit, and so did Meg. Validation by others. And it's a very, very non-traditional, you know, criteria. It's not the social science research index of how many people have cited your work in the, you know, in the last 5 years in the annual review. Awards, recognition, work citations, social media analytics, and others who can define your contribution as best. My experience in still, you know, we get asked this. Not everybody knows everything that you've done. And Meg's good advice, if you pick people who, you know, hey, I recommended you for graduate school, here's a job application. This is really very, very different process. It's a brag sheet. It's an opportunity to feel confident and comfortable about what you've done, and let others judge whether or not you think they've made the criteria or not. So let me go back to both you and Marissa to see if there are other questions, concerns, issues that we can comment on. And I will stop sharing my screen. I know how to do that. And so we can see each other again. Okay, we can do that here. Okay. Okay, new share, stop sharing. We'll figure this out. I got it.
So knowing how to work on Zoom is not a criteria for fellow status.
Yes.
So we've still
Indeed.
got your screen on our screens.
Yeah, there
There we
you
go.
go. There you
Perfect.
go.
I just took care of it for you.
Thank you, Amber.
No problem.
I'm looking at the chat now. Okay.
Thanks, Marissa.
Okay. So Amber writes, can you discuss how to share about open course materials in an application? That's a good point as well. So here's a little bit of, so last I teach at Rutgers in the PsyD program in clinical and school. I teach community and program evaluation. Everything is up there. And then Meg, you might want to kind of comment in this as well. The access is sometimes limited by the university. So I've got my course sites, I've got my syllabi, I've got resources, everything that's there. But you need to log in to Rutgers to be able to get access to that material. But at the same time, you could excerpt from materials that you have, or a curriculum or a program, and make that part of your application. Meg, what do you think?
I'm not quite sure what you're saying. Because what you're trying to do is document impact. So you're not just trying to show that you've done good work. That's where I thought Amber's question was going. Sort of, if you have open source material, I think she sent it to you because I don't see it.
Yeah.
Amber, why don't
Open
you
source course material, yeah.
open source, that I think that's if it has an impact beyond your local setting. And Amber, tell us what you were. Come
Yeah.
back to us, Amber.
No, I haven't gone
With
anywhere.
your lovely face.
There she
So
is.
in terms of just thinking about, because there are some community psychologists that are publishing in spaces that are not the traditional journal avenue.
Yes.
And so how do you convey that, articulate that impact in the field, given that that is a non-traditional space?
Sure.
So
Go ahead, Meg.
well, in some ways, I mean, the traditional spaces, I guess you can talk about how many times it's been referenced and whether you're in other people's, in the articles, are they describing your work? But with non-traditional, I think it goes back to some ways Bill's comment about web analytics. I mean, do you know how many people are clicking on your materials? How much are people, again, how much people are citing it? How much are people using it? So I don't know that much about that whole world, so I might not be the best to comment on it, but it seems to me in some ways, given it's available on the web, you might be able to find some very creative ways of documenting how much uptake there's been.
Yeah, and so to clarify just a little bit, because now I'm listening to Amber and Meg, open source is a huge range of material, as you know. There are things on YouTube that nobody kind of is aware of. What is it? It's someone that's taken your work, used it as part of a lecture, and it's all accessible. So now Google isn't the only search engine, but it is still pretty good. And if your keywords are pretty well described, even your name, okay, will bring back lots of hits sometimes. And if you put in your name and then associate it with a particular research program, does a fairly decent job of matching it. And comment last, which is, do we know who's actually used or cited our work? Oftentimes not. It can be identified by someone who just is impressed or uses it, or if there's a curriculum that's available, or if there's other material. But look, the bottom line is impact is defined today in very, very different ways.
Yes.
Have you made a difference? Have you made a difference in a way that is meaningful and is demonstrable in your application?
So Tonya needs to leave. So Tonya, nice to see you and have fun teaching.
Well, yes, I just wanted to say thank you once again. This has been very informative, and I have a better understanding of what it entails, which is impact which is the key term. And I will provide information in a case brief regarding my impact, and then get others to support the fact that I have made an impact as well.
Beautiful summary. That's great.
Thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you too. Have fun in class. Enjoy teaching.
Thank you.
So I guess Marissa's our holdout here. Is there anything else, Marissa, that you're interested in thinking about out loud or in writing or that we can address?
And I have the chat open, Marissa, if you want to take one more try at it.
Or Amber, for the sake of the recording, are there other issues that you think would be good to be addressed here, or comments that you want to add?
Yeah, I have two more, and the next one is based off of just emails and questions that I get. So I thought it'd be helpful to share the response in this space. So for individuals that might be interested in terms of only getting an APA fellow, if they've already received a SCRAW fellow, in terms of what that process would look like.
Well, that's interesting. So people are in that situation where they are SCRAW fellows, but were they turned down by APA before, but they didn't, or did they not put their name forward?
They did not move their name forward.
Okay. I mean, geez, I think it should be pretty straightforward. I mean, we don't need to reassess them for if they're already an SCRA fellow. We don't need to do that again. But we, I think, do have to. I think we send it on to APA. But correct me if I'm wrong with that. So they do need to submit it through our committee, and then we just put it on. But there's not going to be another vote needed if they've already got fellow status.
And there's
So I
also
think the forms that they submit to us follow the APA format, so we would forward it on.
yeah, there is what I held up, and I read it, unfortunately, earlier today. There is an 11-page APA guideline set. You know what I'm talking about, Amber? And you do too. And enrolling in that platform, there's a lot of hoops to go through to do that. Everything populates and so forth. But the bottom line is, I think if we can get SCRA fellows, we can then kind of deal individually. Do you want to in parallel apply to, APA? I think is the groundwork of prospecting for our own members, along with our goals of where can we get people to apply. So, unfortunately, the next information session, as I mentioned to Amber, is December 7th. And the thing is due in another 7 or 8 days. So I'm just, concerned that we really need to get everybody, the EC and everybody out, just, kind of getting the word out. And, and personally, Tom Wolf, I think I shared with you, said, here are 4 great people that I could think of who we ought to encourage to apply. Do you guys know Gloria Levin?
This is probably not a good topic for a recording.
Okay. In any event, there are people who I've worked with before who are very knowledgeable, who could be
in terms
helpful.
of Gloria is fantastic at recommending people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was talking
And
about.
supporting them and mentoring them. She's phenomenal.
Absolutely. I tried. Unfortunately, the cell phone that I have for her is not current. So Amber, if you've got any more contact information, but she's always great. She'll talk to you like 10 o'clock at night and say, all right, give me 3 days and I'll go up and I'll look for folks.
So for the purposes of this recording and this sort of passing this on, I think we're happy also to offer ourselves up as members of the committee to consult individually. And I think there are people, Gloria and others, that we might be able to link people with one-on-one. If we, somebody's looking for a particular type of mentor. Tom Wolf and Gloria both are in the practice realm, so they're particularly good at mentoring people, I think, who have those kinds of track records. So yeah, I think, and I'd welcome people giving me a call directly as well. December, you're right, December 7th is almost too late. But Marissa asked a good question, is how often does this call come out? So if you don't make this December, you can always do December of 2023 with a little more advance notice and a little more time to really think through. It's hard
Sure.
heading into the end of the semester to pull this all together.
It is, but we'll be optimistic. There are good candidates out there. We know that our members have made a difference, and we're particularly looking forward to a more diverse and inclusive applicant pool this time around. So it's just, who do you know? And, you can't do it wholesale. We sent out the call, here's an email. Someone recently said, well, there are 2 members of the faculty. Meg, you had some people that you had 2 people that you knew, to do that as well. And the best, so same thing with Tom. Tom, send him an email. These are people with Dawn, I think his last 2 that we've all worked with. So let's, kind of recommit ourselves to the prospecting part of this first. Let's go encourage potential applicants to apply.
And I also want to add, just to echo Meg's sentiments, if there's anyone who's interested in applying and is seeking mentorship beyond the committee, we also have a list of individuals that are SCRA fellows on our website. And so if you see, any familiar names or unfamiliar, we're a community that wants to support each other. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need any kind of support in anything with this process. And yes, our next one is close to the deadline, but that's that, oh my gosh, I wish I would have asked this, but I didn't ask this. So I got this little last minute question that I can just get real quick. That was sort of the premise of having it so close. So I hope that that works out for those that can attend or don't attend. And let's say you have additional questions even after watching this session or attending this session, to still definitely please reach out, because we are here to support you in the application process. We want anyone that is at that stage where they are wanting to apply to have all the support that they need to have a successful application. And I want to also just add, if there are any additional tips that both of you have in terms of making sure that an application is strong and is able to go through that process successfully. If there's anything that you haven't shared in that realm, if you had any additional tips.
Yeah, Meg's advice, from the gut earlier, don't pick friends, don't pick faculty members who know you, don't pick a whole bunch of people who are going to, just as you said, I'm going to pull out the recommendation I wrote for you for your internship. And the more recognized your endorsers are, it does make a difference. If you've got people who have some exposure, some tenure, some standing in the field, yeah, it really makes a difference when you kind of read these. I mean, I just did the APA. The letters of endorsement, some were 4 or 5 pages, really knew not necessarily the applicant, but knew the work.
Those are the most powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what in the recommendation though, along those lines, we're a funny field, right? Community psychology people, we're united by a set of principles and ideas and sort of theories and frameworks. We don't always know the substance area. There are just a lot of different substance areas. So one of the thoughts I have for applicants is to talk to a colleague that you do know who's in your substantive area. Like Marissa, somebody who's in violence against women, and ask them to help you think through how they would document the impact of your research, because they'll know the realms that are relevant to your particular sub area within community psychology. And, they may know some policy issues that your work has had an impact. They may know, particular others in your field that are not people you know directly, but who have been impacted by your work. They may be a great sort of brainstorming resource, I think, for a first stop to think through how you might go about it. Yeah. Even if they're maybe too close to you to be an endorser, but they can help you think through how you document impact.
Yeah, sure. So if we could, Amber, could you stop the recording at this point?
We can't hear you anymore, Amber. You're muted.
Well, that must be one
I
of the
know,
consequences.
I know, I need that t-shirt. Thank you everyone for joining this evening. This concludes this particular session. The recording will be made available and will be shared with membership. And also I'll share the contact information of our chair and our committee member in case you need additional support. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.